How the Kremlin uses energy as a weapon, the doctrine. Let's start with the playbook. The Soviet Union built pipes not just to sell gas, but to bind neighbors to Moscow's rhythm. Pipeline diplomacy wasn't subtle. Volume for loyalty, price for compliance, and a steady suggestion that technical issues could hit inconveniently. That legacy carried forward, but post-2000 it matured. The Kremlin pulled levers that made Gazprom and Rosneft more than companies. They became policy arms with balance sheets. Contracts got long, clauses got precise, and the penalties for straying got painful. Most people think it's just commerce, but everything changes when you read those contracts as political instruments with legal armor. Here's what actually happens. You frame pressure as a commercial dispute, push it into arbitration, and talk about compressor blades, not coercion. Meanwhile, the market moves, governments wobble, and the Kremlin can insist it's only enforcing terms. Plausible deniability lives in the paperwork. Safety, maintenance, insurance exclusions. These aren't excuses, they're shields. Arbitration becomes a time sink while policy goals advance. And because it looks like a corporate fight, not a geopolitical squeeze, it stays below the threshold that triggers a unified response. It's coercion with a highlighter and a spreadsheet. But here's where it gets interesting. The cutouts aren't just lawyers. State firms use private security arms, shell shipping firms, and third-party contractors who can stage accidents that point nowhere. The storylines are pre-built. Fouled intakes from fishing gear, anchor drags, corrosion hotspots, even storms that were worse than predicted. Insurance language does the rest. If you can argue a plausible maintenance or certification lapse, you widen the fog and move liability off the core actor. That's not espionage in the Hollywood sense. It's campaign design across law, logistics, maritime ambiguity, and narrative. Threshold management is the doctrine's spine. You pressure, but never with a clear return address. You harm, but not enough to invoke Article 5 or guarantee attribution. When escalation approaches, you pause, reframe, and resume under a different pretext. The result is a string of reversible actions, volume cuts, reroutes, temporary outages that signal power without owning the blow. Energy becomes a dimmer switch, not an on-off lever, and that dimmer is operated at opportune political moments. Elections, sanctioned debates, winter forecasts, LNG contract cycles. Each dialed-down notch is a message and a market move. We've seen it in the real world. Ukraine transit disputes that coincided with broader political standoffs. Belarus valve games that looked like calibration errors but lined up neatly with policy demands. Baltic pressure where flows thinned while legal teams flooded arbitration channels. None of these alone proves a covert operation. Together, they show a habit. Apply pressure in spaces where maritime zones and insurance clauses create legal fog, and always tell a technical story the public can't easily parse. Most people think energy infrastructure is boring. That boredom is the camouflage. Now, doctrine doesn't execute itself. To make gray zone pressure work, you need a tool that crosses seams. Commercial contracts, industrial safety, maritime logistics, and covert tradecraft. You need operators who can stage a deniable accident and analysts who can anticipate how a 10% flow cut shifts spot prices and leans on a coalition debate. You also need gatekeepers inside state firms to open the right maintenance window at the right time. That's intent fusing with capacity. Consider the roles. Gazprom and Rosneft can set the legal pretext. We're waiting on a certified turbine. The insurer suspended coverage. The safety inspection flagged corrosion. The ministries echo it. State-friendly experts amplify it. Meanwhile, in the background, a security arm can inspect a segment, a contractor can survey a route, and a regional office can verify compliance. If a cable gets nicked or a compressor goes out, it's the weather. If a ship lingers oddly near a critical node, it's routine research. The frame holds because audiences expect complexity and accept technical jargon as a wall. The doctrine also values feedback loops. Trial a nudge, reduce capacity under a maintenance rationale, and watch the market. If prices spike and political pressure mounts, you sustain the nudge. If attribution risk rises, you walk it back with a fix-found press note. This is signaling with built-in deniability. It's not random. It's iterated pressure shaped by quick intelligence on sentiment, inventory levels, and headline risk. Everything is reversible until it is. And that's the shadow line Nordstream crossed. Before the blasts, the pattern stayed mostly in reversible territory. Maintenance windows, turbine disputes, certificate holdups, and carefully messaged reductions. It set the stage. Europe learned that a stamped approval or withheld insurance could move billions and stress alliances, and Moscow learned how quickly markets react to technical talking points. When the seabed shook, it wasn't a new idea. It was a harder variant of the same doctrine. Use ambiguity to force strategic choices. The point wasn't noise. It was fear, precision-timed uncertainty that makes leaders hesitate. So intent is clear, energy is leverage, and legal technical narratives are the cover. The question is execution. Who has the mandate to mix counterintelligence, corporate pressure, and covert tradecraft? Who can move from a desk in Moscow to a maintenance tender in the Baltic without leaving a clean line of attribution? That's where we move from doctrine to the operators designed for ambiguity. Inside the FSB architecture, who does what? Start with the split everyone confuses. GRU is military intelligence, foreign, kinetic, battlefield shaping. SVR is external espionage, long-game recruitment, and political influence overseas. The FSB's mandate sits differently. Internal security, counterintelligence, and the grey space where domestic leverage bleeds into foreign pressure, especially around critical infrastructure and economic nodes. When energy becomes a coercive instrument framed as safety or compliance, the FSB's blend of legal authority, industrial reach, and covert tradecraft makes it the natural hub. Inside Lubyanka, the Economic Security Service, SEB, matters first. On paper, SEB fights economic crime and protects strategic sectors. In practice, it polices and influences the arteries of the economy: energy, transport, heavy industry, finance. SEB has standing relationships with Gazprom's security directorate and Rosneft's security arms, plus regulatory agencies that control certifications. That means when a compliance audit or safety inspection needs to open a maintenance window or close it, SEB can nudge the process with official letters, informal calls, or a quiet visit. Next, the Counterintelligence Service, DKR. Most people think counterintelligence is about catching spies, and that's true, but it's also about controlling access. DKR can vet who gets near compressor stations, subsea projects, and maintenance tenders. They clear or block foreign contractors, screen divers, and run background checks that double as leverage. If you want to build deniable operations, you start by shaping the pool of people who can plausibly be on site. DKR creates a map of trusted cutouts and exploitable liabilities. Then there's the Information Security Center, ISI, focused on cyber, telecom, and data. That's not a random add-on. Modern pipelines are data-rich systems. SCADA networks, maintenance logs, sensor arrays, AIS feeds, and insurance documentation all leave trails. ISI can quietly harvest schedules, planned outages, and route maps. It can also shape the fog. Temporary AIS silence around a research vessel, selective cyber glitches that justify on-site inspections, or data taps that tell you when insurers are hesitating on coverage. Under SEB, Department K gets granular. It's historically tied to banking and industrial crime, but its remit overlaps with procurement and supply chains. Department K has the tools to audit parts flows, turbines, valves, explosive precursors, under the banner of fraud prevention. That's where denial-friendly explosives can be acquired under industrial or mining cover, and where paperwork can be massaged so that if anything surfaces, it looks like a routine purchase for seismic surveys or demolition training. Service M is the FSB's liaison function across ministries and key enterprises. Think gatekeeper and fixer. Service M can formalize cooperation agreements, arrange joint drills, and embed security officers inside corporate structures as advisors. Those embed spot access windows, an upcoming dry dock, an ROV charter, a third-party inspection contract. Once you see the windows, you can align operations to them or engineer new ones with a polite recommendation about risk mitigation. What about hands-on capability? The FSB does have Spetsnaz and technical centers, less famous than GRUs, but trained in protective security that shades into sabotage-adjacent skills. Underwater capabilities exist for counter-diver defense and infrastructure security exercises. Those skills transfer. Explosive ordnance work, framed as counter-terrorism tests, becomes a way to practice clamp placement, initiation systems, and ROV handling. Electronic warfare cells monitor maritime emissions and deconflict low-signature comms during sensitive tasks. Regional UFSB offices, the oblast-level branches, matter more than people think. They manage local ports, divers, and contractors. They can hire environmental survey teams, approve drone flights, and steer municipal agencies. In the Baltic regions, UFSB coordinate with border guards and coast services, ensuring that if a vessel loiters near a sensitive point, the right people look away or look in the wrong direction. That local muscle makes national planning actually executable. Now the coordination nodes with state firms. Gazprom security isn't mal-cops. It has maritime assets, ROV access through contractors, and legal authority to secure its facilities. Rosneft's security arm is similar on the oil side. These teams routinely run drills, risk assessments, and inspections with FSB oversight. During those activities, data is gathered, routes are surveyed, and equipment is tested under legitimate cover. If you want to map seabed geometry near a pipeline, call it an integrity check. If you need to pre-place innocuous hardware, call it a sensor calibration. Funding and cover flow through procurement fronts, consulting firms that sell, safety audits, logistics companies that charter vessels, and NGO-like outfits that run marine research. A compliance visit can include third-party subcontractors who bring toolkits you don't itemize on public manifests. Payments move via litigation budgets, emergency maintenance funds, or risk management line items. Even if auditors ask later, the ledger reads like due diligence under sanctions and safety pressure. Communication stays low amid. Briefings happen in person, phones leave rooms, and tasking rides on one-time pads or hand-carried notes. Operational details are compartmented. The team that arranges port access doesn't know charge timing. The divers don't know narrative rollouts. The corporate liaison only sees an insurance clause argument. If something leaks, it sounds like disconnected bureaucracy, not a plan. So from desks in Lubyanka to steel on the seabed, this is the skeleton. SEB sets the economic frame, DKR controls access and people, ISI manages data and fog, Department K shapes supply chains, Service M glues it to ministries and state firms, Regional UFSB localize the action, and Spetsnaz technical cells deliver skills under security cover. It looks like protection. Used right, it's pressure without a signature, and it's designed to make opponents doubt their own timelines and choices. The Gray Zone Playbook against energy infrastructure. Let's make Gray Zone concrete. On pipelines, it means actions calibrated to be reversible, deniable, and timed. You don't level a system. You introduce friction, a valve that sticks, a sensor that fails, a compressor that overheats. The effect looks like normal industrial noise, but the sequence and timing create leverage. If it bites politically, you keep the pressure. If attribution risk climbs, you flip the switch back and point to a maintenance log. Think in effects, not just damage. Disruption is obvious. Reduced throughput or temporary shutdowns, but signaling is just as valuable. A quiet outage during a sanctions vote says, we can make this worse. Data theft adds a targeting layer. Grab maintenance schedules, inspection routes, and SCADA alarms so future nudges land precisely. Trigger a safety scare, gas detection spikes, corrosion alerts, and watch regulators restrict operations for you. And when markets are jittery, even a rumor moves prices. A timed, technical announcement can be a profitable trade. Now the legal fog. Pipelines and cables cross territorial seas, EEZs, and sometimes grey areas where jurisdiction and responsibility split. That creates seams between coast guards, navies, energy regulators, and insurers. If an incident happens in an EEZ, coastal states have rights, but foreign-flagged vessels complicate enforcement. Add insurance clauses, exclusions for war, sabotage, negligence, and maintenance lapses. If you can frame an event as poor upkeep or an unfortunate anchor drag, insurers and operators fight each other instead of asking who planted a charge. Narrative preparation starts weeks or months ahead. You seed plausible causes, announce corrosion mitigation plans, flag minor compressor issues, or publicize a fisheries conflict near the route. When the event hits, you have ready-made explanations: fishing gear fouling, anchor drag, metal fatigue, a storm cell. These aren't random excuses. They're pre-built storylines that fit the paperwork. If a survey picked up seabed debris last quarter, you reference it. If a certification lapsed under sanctions pressure, you point there. The audience sees complexity and defaults to accident. Proxies make the story breathe. Contractors with legitimate access can place sensors, mark coordinates, or unknowingly scout routes. Divers for hire trained for industrial tasks can be tasked through layers of brokers and fronts. Local fixers arrange berth space, fuel, and storage for survey equipment. None of them need to know intent. Their names appear in port records and invoices, building a mundane paper trail. If investigators circle back, they find familiar companies and routine services. The real edge is the feedback loop. Trial a minor disruption, say a compressor outage framed as a safety precaution, and track market moves, media narratives, and diplomatic chatter. If the price spike produces political concessions, you repeat with slight variation. If it draws too much naval attention, you pivot to a cyber glitch that justifies onshore inspections instead. The playbook is iterative. Push, read, recalibrate. Everything is modular. Delivery options sit on a spectrum of risk. Low risk, information ops and legal levers that slow certifications and insurance approvals. Medium risk, physical accidents created by anchor drags, snagged trawls, or preposition debris that a routine tow can nudge. Higher risk, precision sabotage using ROVs or trained divers placing magnetic clamps and time delay initiators. The choice depends on attribution sensitivity and desired market effect. You don't need explosions to get leverage, though sometimes you want the shock. Communications discipline keeps it grey. Low-emit procedures, compartmented tasking, and in-person handoffs mean the people arranging a maintenance window never talk to the people handling a charter. You avoid persistent patterns, change vessels, rotate ports, vary call signs, and use legitimate research or environmental survey covers. If AIS must go dark, you do it where many vessels routinely glitch. If you need AIS on, you keep tracks ordinary. Straight-line transits, normal speeds, familiar routes. Here, that's where it gets interesting for maritime lawyers and insurers. Clauses around due diligence and seaworthiness can be turned into traps. If an operator is behind on inspections because a sanctioned part can't be certified, you can trigger an incident that looks like the logical result. The insurer balks, regulators step in, and throughput falls without anyone proving foul play. The grey zone payoff is a chilling effect across the sector. Operators overcompensate, slow operations, and accept higher premiums. Useful idiots amplify it. Industry-adjacent commentators who love technical explanations will confidently assert the most benign cause because it matches their experience. A retired captain says, "I've seen anchor drags do worse." A corrosion expert notes, "Under-deposit corrosion can fracture steel." Both statements can be true and still be the perfect camouflage for deliberate placement. The overlap between plausible and planned is the operational sweet spot. Everything changes when you layer timing. Elections, winter demand peaks, LNG cargo tightness, storage targets, and sanction rollout dates are calendars, not background.